Hello and welcome to the very first video of our series of conversations on digital rights, a series of discussions on the challenges of access and use of digital media in Europe. We are delighted to launch this year's series with a conversation with Simona Levi. Ms. Levi, hello, and thank you for joining us today.
Hello, my pleasure.
So, Ms. Levi, you are a digital rights activist, director of postgraduate studies at the University of Barcelona on technopolitics and rights in the digital age, and you are also a playwright. And back in 2008, you founded Xnet, an activist project working and proposing advanced solutions in fields that relate to digital rights and democracy, including digital privacy, mechanisms for citizens' control of power and institutions, and the right to be informed. And in 2017, you were chosen by Rolling Stone magazine as one of the 25 people shaping the world's future. It is an honor having you with us today.
Thank you.
And taking part in the discussion, we also have two colleagues, respectively from the European Free Alliance, IFA, and the European Free Alliance Youth, Amy and Adrienne. Hello. So, Amy, you are the press and communications officer for IFA, and both in and outside your digital communications work, you advocate for a fair and free access to the internet for all, and for increased internet literacy for all ages. And Adrienne, you are the coordinator of the youth branch of IFA. You are Basque and you have long been involved in politics and in youth movements, campaigning for peaceful and democratic self-determination for the Basque country and beyond. Thank you both very much for taking part in this discussion. So first question for this conversation today, Simona. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals include a target regarding universal and affordable access to the internet. And according to the UN, while in 2019, almost the entire world population lived within reach of a mobile cellular signal, just 54% of the global population use the internet. And the organization identifies the cost of using the internet and the lack of necessary skills as the key reasons for the gap that exists between the least developed and the developed countries on that matter. What is the state of play today at the EU level when it comes to accessing and using the internet? Who has access, who has not, and why?
Thank you very much. I'll apologize for my creative English, but I hope that I can explain a bit my point of view on all these issues. So, of course, the internet is a very important tool. I think everybody knows, and there is many problems of the access, but the main one, the core one, the one that is above all of them is, of course, the access for economical reason. So for many people, it's not affordable. And now we have seen very clearly with the COVID that is a very huge problem, for example, in a family where there is, for example, one only computer that we have to share. We have to decide if we want for educating the children, to use it for the work. And this is, so it's a problem of the access of the internet, is a problem of the access of the tools to use the internet. So of course there is an important gap on that. Europe is doing a pretty important effort in order on the geographic problem in order to provide access to internet everywhere in Europe. There is a lot of help for communities to reach the access. But the first problem is that, for example, in Spain, where I work, very little city or part of the country are considering this demand from their own population as a priority. So we have a first gap on the fact that these facilities to provide internet on the territory is not well used by the local administration. Once we have the connection, then we have this problem of not having the tools for the connection. And also we have a very important problem on the monopoly of the access. At least in Spain, the access of internet is in the hand of very little actors, which make the price in Spain very, very high. We are one of the countries in Europe where it's the highest. And in this case, I think this is a responsibility of the national governments. I think it's a negotiation that has to be done to balance the need of the population, what is something that should be a public service and is not yet a public service. I'm sure we will talk about this later, and the price they provide to the population. We are doing a project on democratic digitalization of education, and the prices for schools are absolutely unaffordable. Especially in the case of the pandemic, where the education had to be done via the internet, it was impossible to do so in many, many places because the connection of the schools and of the family were so low and so and the quality of the connection so low that the student cannot be educated. So several problems are there, and they are political, mainly political, because we need a strong decision, political decision, to end with the gap in the access to internet.
Thank you very much for your answer. Yes, I think it's indeed very important that internet access should be considered a public service, as you mentioned, and that means involvement from public authorities to negotiate and talk with internet providers about the costs and about just the technical aspect of providing internet access to the whole population in Europe. Thank you for this. I will now pass the floor on to Amy for the next question.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, Simona. In the past year, we've been through a collective series of lockdowns, and that's had a considerable implication on our daily lives. And one of the things, as you noted, is that one of the things that's been brought to light is that more than ever, access to a reliable internet connection is essential for daily living. A reliable and high-speed internet connection has allowed some Europeans to keep in touch with loved ones or work from home or study and stay on top of the news. But for another part of the population, they found themselves having to make the decision between studying or working or keeping in touch with their family. And would you say that in 2021, access to a reliable internet connection should now be considered a human right and treated as such?
Yes, there is an important discussion going on, especially with the support of the President of the Parliament, Mr. Sassoli, an important debate going on this issue. We have something good going on in Europe. After the administration Obama decided during the administration Obama in the US, internet was declared a public service. This helped very much a decision that happened in Europe, which is the directive on the net neutrality. So, and after the Trump administration had changed and deleted the decision of the Trump administration on the public services, Europe has become the core place in which we defend the basic structure for the internet, the net neutrality, an internet with no discrimination. So Europe, it is very well placed to go deeper in this discussion of having the internet as at least a public service. I don't want to enter completely in the debate if it's a human right. I would just ask a question back, for all of us. Is the water a human right? Is the housing a human right? Is the air we breathe a human right? The access of all what we really need for our daily life, to health, to education. I think internet in this era have to be the same that all these other field. But if we want to be very diplomatic, let's at least say that we need that it is like electricity. We need that is an access to a public service, at least. Because, of course, 1 century ago, the access to electricity was a commodity for some, was not a public service. And this is the situation now for the internet. So we have to speed the time and decide a bit quicker that every human being have the right to have an access to internet enough so that he can deploy all his possibility in the era in which we are.
Thank you, Simona. I think you raised some really important points there. And particularly at IFA, we're concerned that the digital gap is widening, and things such as a move to a cashless economy is having a broader impact on minorities and national regions. And it's something that we'd like to see the EU act on to make sure that no one's left as a second-class citizen in Europe. I'll now pass the floor on to Adrian from IFA Youth for the next question.
Thank you very much, Amy, and thanks, Simona, for your very interesting comments. So my question is about digitalization. So there are different ways of carrying out digitalization right now, but it seems like we live in a world where, while access to digital technology is becoming easier, we also have very little control over our data and the privacy online. With Xnet, you advocate for democratic digitalization, something that you have been exploring, especially in the field of education, with a plan drawn for the City Council of Barcelona. Could you give us your definition of democratic digitalization and tell us more about its benefits for citizens and for institutions? Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you very much for your questions. Democratic digitalization is starting from the previous point. Of course, we need an access for everybody to the internet. And after that, what we try to explain from Xnet is that the internet is not only a tool, it's also a structure. It's a new structure for governance. The governance of internet is a network that combines in a very healthy way a vertical structure with an horizontal structure. So it's a structure on distributed leadership, different nodes with strong leadership that combine in a network, which is the real, it's a much more near structure to what we can really have in our societies. Our society always have a civil society organized, trying to find solution in different fields. And this is the power and the richness of a good governance. So internet is providing us a tool, but is also providing us a structure to transform our way of living together and how we govern our societies, which is much more democratic, in which everybody's abilities can be useful for the common and also for the private and personal well-being. So democratic is access to tools, but also transformation of our society in a more transparent, open, and connected capacity of getting organized and creating a space for everybody to deploy his abilities, but also his happiness in some way.
Yeah, thanks so much. I absolutely agree, and I think that it goes without discussion that in the last 10-15 years, the capabilities that internet has allowed for civil society and for activism, it's absolutely has changed completely the way that they work, at least in our context in Europe. Thanks so much for the question, for the answer, Simona.
Well, thank you. This concludes our conversation for today. Thank you all for your participation, and most importantly, thank you, Ms. Levi, for your presence and for giving us your insights on this important matter. And thank you for watching this video. We hope that you have found this conversation interesting, and our next discussion will be released in the next few weeks. Until then, take care.